Okay, let's jump right into this incredible explainer about a mind that literally changed the world. But as we're going to see, paid the absolute ultimate price to do it. Today, we're looking at the life, the staggering achievements, and the profound sacrifices of Marie Curie. So, right off the bat, we have to ask, how did her immortal legacy also kill her? That question is really the beating heart of our story today. It perfectly contrasts her life-saving, monumental discoveries with her tragic, unavoidable end. We're going to explore how someone unlocks the absolute deepest secrets of the physical universe, knowing full well the personal danger involved. And to put that danger into perspective, think about the lasting, invisible power of the elements she dedicated her entire life to uncovering. Get this, over a century later, her literal handwriting is still radiating energy. Anyone who wants to study her original thoughts today has to sign a waiver and actually armor up in protective gear just to be in the same room with her papers. Now that is a truly physical legacy. Section 1. A thirst for knowledge. You know, Marie Curie faced immense systemic barriers right from the jump. She was born Maria Skłodowska back in 1867 in Warsaw, living under strict Russian rule where just speaking Polish was practically a crime. And her childhood was heartbreaking. By the time she was 10, she had already lost her oldest sister to typhus and her mother to tuberculosis. As she grew older and desperately wanted to learn, she hit another massive wall. The Russian Empire completely banned women from university education. So what did she do? She rebelled. She joined the Floating University, which was this incredible, secretive, illegal network of underground classes that constantly changed locations just to dodge the authorities. But she knew she needed a real lab. So she made a pact with her sister Branya. Marie worked for years as a governess, basically a servant to wealthy families, just to fund Branya's medical studies in Paris, all on the promise that her sister would return the favor later. And that patience paid off. When she finally reached Paris in 1891 at age 24, she was living in this freezing, tiny attic. She was surviving on almost nothing. She famously used to forget to eat until she'd literally pass out from exhaustion, but she didn't complain. To her, it was like a whole new world had finally opened up. She marveled at her newfound freedom, thrilled that she was finally permitted to study physics and mathematics at the Sorbonne in all liberty. Section 2. Partners in Life and Science. Now, in 1894, a quest for lab space led to her meeting Pierre Curie. He was an established physicist, and he was so captivated by her brilliant mind that instead of bringing her flowers, he wooed her with an autographed copy of one of his physics papers. I absolutely love that detail. They married in 1895, and instead of a traditional white gown, she wore a super practical dark blue outfit. That exact outfit actually became her trademark suit in the laboratory. They were completely true equals. They even used their wedding money to buy bicycles, which was basically their only way to unwind from a life completely consumed by research. And by 1898, that shared obsession led them to announce the discovery of two entirely new elements: polonium, named after her beloved Poland, and radium. What's absolutely crucial to understand here is that she didn't just discover new elements, she had to literally invent a completely new vocabulary for the science she was pioneering. She actually coined the word radioactive to describe this bizarre phenomenon she was observing. Using an electrometer invented by Pierre and his brother to measure these mysterious rays, she proved that radiation wasn't just a chemical reaction, it was a fundamental property of the atoms themselves. Game changer. But actually proving the existence of radium, it was a total nightmare. This wasn't glamorous, clean laboratory work. It was intense, grueling physical labor. To get pure radium, they bought tons and tons of cheap pitchblende dirt from an Austrian mine. They had no proper lab, just a leaky, drafty, freezing shed. Marie would personally melt the rock in these massive boiling pots, stirring it continuously with a heavy steel rod that was almost as tall as she was. Section 3. Unlocking the atom's secrets. The dramatic irony during this era is just unbelievable. The public became absolutely obsessed with this glowing green radium. They treated it like a miracle cure-all. They were putting it in toothpaste. They put it in facial creams, promising it would smooth out wrinkles. But the scientific reality? It was terrifying. Radium was highly toxic. It was slowly burning the Curie's hands, leaving their fingertips totally numb and cracked, quietly destroying their healthy cells from the inside out. So while the Curies were suffering, the rest of the world was literally brushing their teeth with the stuff. Yet, despite living in relative poverty for years, Paying for so much of their research out of their own pockets, Marie flat out rejected the idea of hoarding this knowledge for personal gain. She firmly believed radium was, in her words, a property of all humans. $100,000. That is the staggering cost of a single gram of radium in the 1920s. If you adjust that for today, you're looking at well over $1 million for just a tiny speck of this element. The Curies could have patented their extraction process and easily become billionaires, but they didn't. They willingly walked away from all of that money so that doctors and scientists worldwide could freely use radium to start treating cancer.
Section 4. Tragedy and a Second Nobel.
The emotional whiplash of these next few years is just incredibly intense. In 1903, she completely shatters the glass ceiling, becoming the first woman ever to win a Nobel Prize in physics, sharing it with Pierre and Henri Becquerel. But then, in 1906, absolute devastation hits. Pierre was walking in the rain in Paris, slipped, and was instantly killed by a horse-drawn wagon. Pushing through agonizing, unimaginable grief, Marie took over his teaching post, becoming the first female professor at the Sorbonne. She even picked up her first lecture at the exact spot Pierre had left off. And then, by 1911, she pulls off something unprecedented, a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry. Yet the fiercely conservative French Academy of Sciences still rejected her membership, and the French press viciously attacked her over an affair with a colleague.
When the press unfairly labeled her a homewrecker and her mental health absolutely plummeted, she actually found support from a pretty surprising source. Albert Einstein personally wrote her a letter. He praised her intellect, her drive, and gave her some phenomenal advice. He literally wrote, "Simply don't read that hogwash." He encouraged her to ignore all the tabloid noise and keep fighting for her science.
Section 5. Little Curies Save Lives.
When World War I broke out and the German army marched toward Paris, Marie didn't flee to safety. No, she sprang right into action. She took her precious stash of radium and hid it in a bank vault in Bordeaux. Then she actually marched into the National Bank and tried to donate her solid gold Nobel Prize medals to fund the war effort. When they refused, she just used her prize money to buy war bonds. But her absolute biggest contribution was realizing that battlefield surgeons desperately needed X-rays to find bullets and shrapnel inside soldiers. So she invented these mobile X-ray units, which the troops lovingly dubbed Little Curies. She and her teenage daughter Irene then personally trained 150 women to drive these vans and operate the equipment right on the dangerous front lines.
1 million. By the end of the First World War, the mobile radiological units and field hospitals she oversaw helped surgeons operate on an estimated 1 million wounded men. She took her cutting-edge theoretical science and brought it directly to the mud and blood of the trenches to save lives.
Section 6. The Cost of Genius. Now, what is deeply, deeply tragic about all of this is how the very thing she loved most ultimately destroyed her. She used to walk around with raw tubes of glowing radium right in her pockets. She kept them by her bedside as a nightlight, calling them her faint fairy lights. Because the science of radiation safety just didn't exist yet, she largely ignored the mounting signs of radiation sickness, the numb fingers, the extreme chronic fatigue. Her eyes deteriorated, requiring 4 brutal surgeries for severe cataracts. Finally, in 1934, at the age of 66, her body just gave out. She died of aplastic anemia, a severe blood disease directly caused by her bone marrow being destroyed from a lifetime of massive radiation exposure.
Decades later, her native France finally gave her the ultimate recognition. In 1995, her remains were moved to the Pantheon in Paris, laying her to rest alongside France's greatest minds. She was the very first woman honored there strictly on her own merits. But even in death, the very elements that cemented her eternal legacy required special containment. Her remains were still so intensely radioactive that her coffin had to be lined with nearly an inch of solid lead just to protect the living public who came to pay their respects. She opened up an entirely new branch of physics. Her work laid the direct groundwork for modern cancer treatments and our entire understanding of atomic structure. She pushed through devastating grief, through crushing sexism, and through literal physical decay. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today, especially when you consider the personal cost behind the conveniences of our modern medical world. Could modern science even exist today without the ultimate sacrifice of Marie Curie? Thanks for exploring this amazing life with me. Keep learning and keep asking the big questions.